Between the years 1845 and 1852, three men, James K. Polk, Zachary Taylor, and Millard Fillmore, were inaugurated as presidents of the United States. During this amazing time in American history, the nation underwent some very drastic territorial changes, not seen since the days of the Louisiana Purchase back in 1803. For example, the Mexican Cession brought the United States the lands that now make up almost all of the southwestern part of the country. A treaty with Britain created the Oregon Territory, land that now makes up the entire northwestern part of the country. And to top it all off, the statehood of Texas added even more land. America's 11th president, James K. Polk, was known for being a man who could get things done. In fact, only he and George Washington had such excellent records of success in achieving their political goals. Polk was from Tennessee. He served here in the capital in Nashville as governor, state senator, and state representative. His home, seen here, was in the town of Columbia, a little south of Nashville. And this was where he lived right up until he moved into the White House. Polk was a Democrat. He favored having slavery and also supported states' rights, the idea that states should have more power than the federal government. Upon taking office in 1845, James Polk listed 4 things he wanted to accomplish as president. The first was to reduce tariffs on imports. The second was to re-establish an independent U.S. Treasury. The third was to settle the dispute with Great Britain over the control of the Oregon Country. The fourth was to acquire California for the United States. By the time his term of office ended, Polk had managed to accomplish every one of his goals, and beyond that, Texas, Florida, Iowa, and Wisconsin all became states during the presidency of James K. Polk. At the time James Polk was just taking over as president in 1845, Texas, which had been an independent nation for 9 years, was going through the final stages of becoming a state. Texans had wanted to become part of the United States even before the famous Battle of the Alamo back in 1835, which had led to Texas independence. But because slavery was allowed in Texas, the northern free states didn't want it to join the United States because Texas statehood would increase the power of the slave states. Late in 1845, a deal was worked out among political leaders, and Texas was admitted to the Union as a slave state. Statehood was granted to Texas, even though the rulers of Mexico had warned that they would cut political ties to the United States if Texas ever was made a state. But the big trouble that soon developed between the two nations probably could have been avoided if the United States had not wanted the Mexican lands that lay between the Pacific Ocean and America's western frontier. The problem was only made worse by the fact that U.S. leaders were demanding a large sum of money from Mexico for American lives and property lost in that country since its independence from Spain. And the Americans were insisting that the boundary line of Texas was at the Rio Grande River, instead of further east where the Mexican government claimed it was. A few months before Texas was granted statehood, President Polk sent Congressman John Slidell of Louisiana on a secret mission. Slidell had been instructed to go to the Mexican capital of Mexico City, and among other things, he was supposed to offer $25 million to buy a huge piece of northern Mexico for the United States. But when the Mexican government learned of his proposal, they were so outraged they refused to talk to him. When John Slidell returned to Washington, D.C., he told President Polk that Mexico needed to be punished for refusing to negotiate. So Polk ordered Army General and future U.S. President Zachary Taylor to take troops into the disputed region of Texas near the Rio Grande River. After Taylor's forces were attacked by the Mexican army, Congress declared war on Mexico in May of 1846. Oddly enough, out in California a month later, without even knowing that war had been declared, a group of Americans took over the northern headquarters of the Mexican government in the town of Sonoma. As a result of what is called the Bear Flag Revolt, California was declared to be a republic and independent of Mexico. In July, American Marines, sailors, and soldiers arrived by ship and captured both San Francisco and Monterey, the capital of Mexican California. While all that was going on, American forces under Colonel Stephen Kearny were heading down the Santa Fe Trail to invade Mexico from the east. In August of 1846, they captured the old city of Santa Fe, annexed New Mexico to the United States, and moved on to take California. That December, Kearny's troops fought Mexican forces at the Battle of San Pascual, near San Diego, California, and were defeated. But a month later, American troops went on to win a decisive battle near the old Spanish mission of San Gabriel in Los Angeles. And after that, California was firmly in U.S. hands. Throughout 1846 and 1847, American forces plunged deep into Mexico's heartland. They also invaded by ship from the Gulf Coast, and after a series of big battles, they captured Mexico City itself. A short time later, on February 2nd, 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed, ending the Mexican War. Under the terms of the treaty, Mexico was forced to sell 2/5 of its territory, an area of land called the Mexican Cession, to the United States for $15 million. This was the same Mexican territory for which America had offered $25 million a few years earlier. From this land, all or parts of the states of California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming would soon arise. In 1846, right after war with Mexico was declared, President Polk was able to gain control of even more land for the United States by working out a deal with Great Britain over the Oregon Country. Back then, this was the name given to a vast region of land jointly controlled by the two nations. It lay to the south of Russian Alaska and to the north of Mexican California, between the Rocky Mountains and the Pacific Ocean. The main outpost of civilization in the Oregon Country was Great Britain's Fort Vancouver, a large collection of buildings used in the fur trading business. But starting in 1843, thousands of Americans began to cross the continent on the Oregon Trail to settle in the fertile Willamette River Valley, just to the south of Fort Vancouver. At that time, the passions of many Americans were being inflamed by the notion of America's manifest destiny, the belief that it was God's plan that the United States should rule all of North America. Although the leaders of Great Britain did not agree with this idea, to avoid a conflict, a compromise was worked out. Under the Oregon Treaty of 1846, the region was divided in half. Britain took control of all the land north of the 49th parallel, and the United States gained control of all the land to the south, which became the Oregon Territory. Out of the Oregon Territory, all or part of 5 new states, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, would come to be formed. In 1849, a new leader moved into the White House. That man was 12th U.S. President Zachary Taylor, hero of the Mexican War. Taylor was a member of the Whig political party that was originally organized to oppose the Democratic Party founded by Andrew Jackson. The year Zachary Taylor was elected, 1848, gold was discovered in California, setting off America's first big gold rush. Throughout Taylor's time in office, hundreds of ships filled with people hoping to strike it rich in the nearby gold fields poured into the harbor of San Francisco, California. Even though Zachary Taylor was a slave owner, he did not want to see slavery expanded in the United States and did his best to stop it. But congressmen from the southern slave states had threatened to break away from the Union if slavery was outlawed in the new territories that were obtained as a result of the Mexican War. At the same time, congressmen from the northern free states threatened military action if that ever happened. But before he could help bring an end to the angry debate over slavery, Zachary Taylor passed away, with 2 more years in office still left to serve. And so, according to the law, the day he died, Vice President Millard Fillmore automatically became the 13th President of the United States. After Zachary Taylor died in July of 1850, it became the responsibility of the new president, Millard Fillmore, to make sure the issue of slavery on the newly acquired lands of the Southwest did not tear the nation apart. This task was actually accomplished thanks mostly to the efforts of Congressman Henry Clay of Kentucky. He helped put together 5 laws that, when taken together, are known as the Compromise of 1850. These laws were designed to appeal to both sides of the slavery issue, those who wanted to stop its spread into the new American territories, and those who wanted slavery to grow. The people who were against slavery were pleased with the part of the compromise that allowed California to enter the Union as a free state, and also with the law that banned the slave trade in Washington, D.C. And the people who were for slavery liked the part of the compromise that allowed people living in the new U.S. territories of Utah and New Mexico to decide for themselves if they wanted slavery. And the pro-slavery people were very happy with the fugitive slave law part of the compromise, because it forced people in the free states to return escaped slaves to their owners in the South. After he signed the laws of the Compromise of 1850, Millard Fillmore served for a little less than 2 more years as president, and he was not selected to be the Whig candidate in the election of 1852. Which saw Franklin Pierce, a Democrat, elected as America's 14th president. True or false, James K. Polk was once the governor of Tennessee. True or false, the Mexican War lasted for 15 years. True or false, the Oregon Treaty of 1846 split the Oregon country into 3 parts. True or false, Zachary Taylor died while serving as president. True or false, the fugitive slave law was designed to protect escaped